Bonsoir, everybody.
Bonsoir. Hi, everybody. Hi, I'm Trish Feaster of Guide Collective. I'm the managing editor, and today we have a very special edition for our Guide Collective book club. And this is really cool because we have our two major events that happen during the month when we do book club. The first Monday of each month, we have an introduction to the book that we're reading. And in case you missed that, it is on our Facebook channel. You can watch that. It was presented by Nina Seffusatti, who is with us today. She is the moderator for this month's book, The Water of the Hills by Marcel Pagnol. And today she has brought along a friend who I'm going to let her introduce, but they're going to be sharing all things Provence with you. So Nina, please take it away.
Merci beaucoup, Trish. Yes, so I'm Nina, and with me here I have a dear friend who's also a colleague of mine. She's a tour guide, a local guide as myself. Anne Gastinel. Ta-da, you're the star of the evening.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir. So Anne, I have brought you here on this live because I wanted to know a bit about what Provence is seen through your eyes. What do you think Provence is? Because you are born in Provence, aren't you?
Absolutely. I was born in Provence, to be more precise, in Marseille. But Marseille is a big city, but gathering a lot of little villages. And the village where I grew is called Eour, and it's very, very close to the place where Marcel Pagnol was coming for holidays. And all his novels are based in the countryside where I grew up. So definitely I'm the daughter of the water of the hills.
You are in fact Manon. Did I say that?
Yes, it was not very exotic at that time because of Marcel Pagnol. So the following generation, there were many Manon, that's right, many.
You could have called, if you were born in, let's say, the 50s, let's say that you could have been called Manon and not Anne, because that's how popular Marcel Pagnol's books and films were, right? Marcel Pagnol is part of your life.
So yeah, of course it's part of my life. So as I told you, I grew and I ran into the hills where he came as well. And that's very different from having a childhood in the city of Marseille, really in the center. Because after school, what did we do with my brothers? Well, we just ran into the hills, climbed into the trees. And so this is probably the reason why I'm a little wild. Yes, I am.
A tomboy, maybe. Yeah. But Anne, tell me, so you were born in Provence, yes. but you have lived elsewhere, right? You have not stayed all your life in Provence?
No. So I made the second half of my studies in Paris. I lived in the French Caribbean, in Guadeloupe, 2 periods of 2 years. I lived a short time in Germany to practice my German, in Madrid to practice Spanish language. So I'm moving a little, yes.
The gypsy spirit have brought you out. So when you studied in Paris, you were how old when you arrived in Paris?
So I arrived at the age of 21.
How was that? How was that as a young woman from Provence arriving in Paris? Was anything that was problematic for you? Something that was difficult for you?
So no, something very weird is that I have to wait that age to understand, to discover, to be precise, that people were paying to have rosemary, to have thyme, to have apricots, figs, because I really thought that everybody had that in their garden, as we did. So I didn't know people were paying for that. So I was almost shocked when I saw that on the Parisian market. I said, wow. but it's for free everywhere where I come from. So that was very weird, yes. The second thing is my accent, because I have, yes, a South of France accent, definitely. Impossible to hide, I'm afraid. And yes, it's people stigmatize you because of that, because we have the reputation not to be serious people in Provence, to be lazy.
Lazy? Lazy people.
Yes, that's the reputation. So that was quite hard regularly when I was looking for a job, and receiving my resume was fine, but on the interviews, they were always surprised by my accent, as if something could have been written on my face just to warn them I'm different. So that was very strange, yes.
You think that would have happened if you had an accent from Alsace or Brittany or another region in France? Or was it particular because it was a Provençal accent?
So it was particularly of Provence, Provençal accent, because Provence is considered as a holiday place for, I would say, the entire planet. But for people in Paris, yes, they think about holidays. So what do people do in holidays in Provence? Well, they drink rosé at the terrace. They put Provençal herbs in all their dishes. They play the local little game called pétanque. They drink a lot of pastis as well. So there are many practices that make them think of holidays. And just listening to me, they say, oh, keep on talking. I feel like I'm on holidays. So you're not taken in serious, you see? So that's quite embarrassing, very often.
Well, if I may interject just for a moment, because I have a couple of questions then. You talk about having this South of France accent. And for our viewers, many of you know that Nina, although she lives in Avignon, she is a native of Denmark. So she's Danish, but she lives in France and has lived there for more than 25 years, I believe. Now, Nina, I would guess that your French is more of a neutral French, closer to a Parisian, no? Yours not.
Ask my friends.
I don't even know that I've heard you speak all that much in French. So let's do this. Let's do an experiment for a second. If you can, I want you guys to say the same exact thing in French, and to say, for example, Provence is a splendid place. Please come visit us. Something like that. Okay, so Nina, I'll have you go first. Provence is a splendid place. Please come visit us.
Provence. Venez nous voir.
Okay, and now Anne's turn.
Over to you, Anne.
Difference. You don't laugh, Nina, okay? La Provence est splendide. Venez nous voir.
Did you hear?
Provence. I don't say Provence. I say Provence. It's a little softer and really something in the south of France. We were not taught to say the right way, actually. So the best example is for the wine and the bread. We don't say that in the different regions of France. So I say that pain et du vin. So Nina?
Pain and vin.
So you can hear the difference.
Wait, I can't. Wait, you need to do it again.
Yeah, so Anne was saying that bread was pain.
Pain.
Go again, Anne. Go again.
Du pain et du vin.
Okay. So
du pain et du vin.
And okay, so for those of us who are from North America, USA, Canada, you might actually hear this difference. So just to go a little bit into migration history, there were so many French that came from the South that actually moved to North America primarily in Canada. So when you hear Canadian French, it is much, much closer to what you hear in the South of France than what you might hear in Paris. And as Anne was just saying, hers is a little bit, we might call it a twang. There's a little bit of a twang there that happens. So she says, pain et vin, and it's a little bit higher and pulled back. Whereas Nina might say pain and vin, right?
Yes.
Pain, vin, pain, vin.
That's right.
Did I get it?
Easy, you got it. You got it.
Champion.
So you could compare the difference with something I heard with the accent from Louisiana.
Ah, yes.
Very close. I was really surprised because they have a Provençal accent actually talking English. So that's very exotic to me.
Okay, so then we'll move away from this language thing in a minute, but you can say the expression that many people from New Orleans say, which is let the good times roll. Laissez les bons temps rouler.
Laissez les
bons temps. Laissez les bons temps rouler.
Oh, laissez les bons temps rouler.
Yeah, let the good times roll. That is very much a New Orleans expression.
Yeah.
Have a party on.
Yeah.
Okay, well, back to Provence.
No, I was just saying that when Anne was talking about how people thought of her as lazy, right? It's because maybe there's part of the idea of this language where you kind of pronounce all the letters in the words, right? That's how you take your time to say Provence.
So do you think that lazy people to make the effort to pronounce all the letters?
I'm just saying, this is, I'm just saying people thought that.
No, I guess because you have to know that during summer, so that's what my father told me, in the 60s, people were starting work at 7 o'clock in the morning during summer because it was too hot. So yes, in the afternoon, they were taking a nap, but they were very early in the morning at work. So yes, people considered we were not working, but not exactly how people do. So probably that's the difference. And because we love life and take time. So is that to be lazy? I'm not sure.
No, and there's a question of the climate, isn't there? A difference of the climate.
Yes.
If you are in Paris or northern France and you're in the south, it gets extremely hot, doesn't it, in Provence? So you have to have a siesta, or you start early in the morning, as you said, yes. Right? But maybe a longer siesta, like in Spain or other southern countries. Yeah. And then you pick up the work in the late afternoon, right? But there is kind of that more laid back, I would say people say that Provençal people are more laid back, enjoying life, enjoying the drink called pastis, etc. Right?
Yeah.
But it is that image that Provence has and Provençal people, they have quite difficult time to get rid of, right? Because they will be described like that in movies and books. But Provence today is not like Provence 20s or even 1950s.
Yeah.
Modern Provence, what do you think, Anne? How has Provence changed actually since, let's say, Pagnol's 1920s or 1950s?
So I don't know if Pagnol did really change something. What he did is build some characters that are really caricatures. And most people, even in Marseille, think that's not caricature and they have to talk that way. So they overreact. They overreact orally, that is to say that they do exaggerate everything they say. And actually, that's a pleasure. I mean, if something is just beautiful, okay. But if that's the thing the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, and you just talk with the hands and just accentuate that way, that makes your speech a little, I would say, living and more enjoying, I guess. And that's a challenge as well. And that's just, how do you say that? A virtual fight just with words. And that's a game. But people think we really take that into serious, and that's not the case. We know when we are joking, of course.
But it is, yep,
oh,
sorry,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
Nina.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to take a moment for our viewers to remind them, if you're just now tuning in, this is a special edition for Guide Collective Book Club, and I'm with Nina Seffusatti, who is a Guide Collective member. She's a guide in southern France, so she lives in Avignon, and we are joined by her friend Anne Gastinel, who is from Arles in Provence, and we are discussing the essence of Provence. If you have questions, we would love it if you would insert those in the chat feed. If you've been to any of the towns or villages in Provence and you want to share some of those experiences, maybe some things that you noticed, some observations that you had, some of the favorite cuisine that you experienced, any of the sites, let us know about that. We will go through those comments as we go through the show. And if we don't get to everything, we will go back and type in our responses to you guys at a later point. But please feel free to join in on this conversation. And I'll turn it back over to Nina and Anne.
Thank you. Merci. No, Anne, I was just going to say, so when you say, now we were talking about Pagnol and Marseille, but when we say, let's say, we say the name Provence, right? The name of the region. We definitely do not talk about Côte d'Azur, the French Riviera, do we?
No. Oh, no. Absolutely not.
Scandal.
And
sorry.
Not people from Provence make the difference. People from Côte d'Azur, they really wanted to make a strong difference. They picked up that specific name. It has no real reference. We have no idea. They wanted to have a specific area with a special name. And so they are not saying, even the people living on Côte d'Azur, very close to Provence, part of Provence, they don't define themselves as Provençals. That's quite, and you know that, Nina.
Mm. I know, it was a rhetorical question. I knew the answer.
No, I mean, you experience probably more than me, because when I prepared to be a guide, the university was in Nice, which is on the Côte d'Azur, as everyone knows. And really, people were looking at me. I was just from Marseille. Oh, this is, yes, a little despising, I would say. And they attracted people and tourists since, well, Queen Victoria, we have to admit. They are used to think that they are over Provence, over everyone, and they're not very nice to us sometimes. But I don't care. I mean, not everyone is that way, and have very good friends as well. So, but just to make the difference, yes, Provence is not La Côte d'Azur.
No. And Côte d'Azur only, I mean, it was originally Italian, right? So it's a later addition to France, even, right? So when we say Provence, both for you and I, it's more, we're thinking that kind of triangle, right? And we have Avignon in the north, Marseille in the south. We include Aix-en-Provence, right?
Yes.
And Arles. So it's actually a quite a limited area when we say Provence, right?
Yes, and Provence is mostly a cultural area. It's not an administrative area. It's just a question of history of the Provençal language. It's a question of what we are used to do, not buying lavender, but just pick it in the garden, for instance, the way we live, and to be really close to nature, and to really admire our own nature and very few wild animals we have in the surroundings.
So you're saying Provence is not like, it's not just a geographical region. It's Provence is about language and traditions and way of life and all that, right? An identity linked to the way of living and building houses, architecture, etc., right? So
that's
it's
right.
It's kind of an unnatural limit that we have nowadays, with the limit that is the Rhone River, right? The Rhone River, because once we cross the Rhone River,
yes, it's different.
It's another region. It's called something else, right? But it is linked, right? We are linked to one another.
Of course we are. And yes, I think that the very thing that unites all the people from Provence is the accent.
So when
even if there are slight differences between people from Marseille, from Antibes, for instance, or even Arles, the accent is different. Avignon is different as well, but it's definitely a southern accent with some specificity. So this is what unites us. And yes, some writers as Marcel Pagnol as well, but now it's more, and he's more internationally known, I have to say.
Mm.
Well, one thing, I'm sorry if you don't mind me jumping in, because we do have a couple of comments that came in, including a question, which I'll bring up in just one second. But it's interesting on how you say that one major thing that unites you is the language. And I'm not sure that everyone out there understands kind of the development of French language and the separation of French language as it has taken place over the years. And when you think back to, what was it, 1600s, I think when Paris was really consolidating power and everything was supposed to be centralized, right? Everything moving towards there as the central power. And where Richelieu was saying, okay, everybody needs to speak this mother language, right? All the patois, all the different dialects, all of those things. No, we communicate as one. We force ourselves toward this one language, which gave them political control. It did give them ease of communication, right? I mean, to streamline everything and to have essentially a universal language can be considered a good thing. But as the Spaniards know, when you suppress other languages, when you suppress other cultures, it strengthens them, actually. And so I can see how the areas that are contained within Provence, the region that you would consider Provence, that there are such strong ties to language, to land, to cuisine, to all of those things, because there was a sense of oppression that was happening from the top down.
Completely.
There was a name when they decided that people should stop talking the different dialects. It's because of the settling republic, and that school became compulsory for all the kids, free and compulsory. That means that any kind of teacher coming from any kind of region would be sent in another part of France to become a teacher. And so everybody had to speak the same languages. Everybody in France had the same books, no differences. And that was just to create the unity by the language. So in Provence, it is not, the dialect is not as preserved as it can be in Brittany, for instance, or in Pays Basque, or in the French, Spanish, listen to me, French Catalonia, or even Corsica. They really keep on using their language. So for instance, I knew that my grandparents talked Provençal, but I've never heard them talking. That's not a language they were using any longer. So that's quite weird. And so I know a few words I can understand. Moreover, I study Spanish, so it's quite close. But no, I'm completely unable to talk Provençal. And it's, I would call it a dead language, even if there is a movement regularly to give some Provençal lessons. That's quite difficult. And there are very, very few teachers, actually.
Well, I'm glad you bring up that. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead,
I can't help myself.
Go ahead.
Because I'm seeing the comments come in, and Julia made a good point. I was misquoting Anne, because Anne had said it's the accent that unites the people within Provence and not the language. And so I'm sorry, my misspeaking about that. The rest still, I make point of that. But the question came up from Joyce Jones, and she says, I am still reading the book, but cheated, and also watched the Jean de Florette movie that was in French with English subtitles. I'm just curious whether the accents / dialect used by the actors was in fact representative of the Provence region.
That's a good question. That's a really good question.
Very good question, because the two main characters in the modern version with Gérard Depardieu and what's the name of the other one? The guy from Avignon?
Yves Montand, Daniel Auteuil.
Daniel Auteuil. So Daniel Auteuil is from Avignon, and Yves Montand grew in Marseille. So they worked very hard to lose their accent, so to have a career as actors. And when they were asked and paid for to find back their accent, well, it was very easy because it's not very far away. And if you are from the south of France, in some movies, even Yves Montand, we can hear there is a slight little trace of a southern accent, definitely. Yes. Mm. So in the movie, the dialect is not used, and there are very few people who are not from the region who are acting in that movie, in the modern version, I would say.
Mm. So what you're saying is when, for instance, Pagnol made his own movies, like the old movies, going back.
Yes, yes,
Fanny,
the old version,
yeah.
1950s.
The Marseille trilogy, right? The Fanny, Marius, César.
Yes, and the problem is that Marcel Pagnol, as many directors, he really demanded that his girlfriend would be the actress. She was from Paris, and she never could catch the accent as Pierre Freinet. So in the 1950s version, he really worked very hard. He went to Marseille, he met people, he really transformed the way of talking and could catch it very, very well. I was really impressed. The day I heard he was not from the region. So he did that very well. But one of the main characters not having the accent was quite shocking. We got used to it. Moreover, unfortunately, she was a very bad actress. Moreover, in addition to the horrible accent.
Yeah, but actually, you know, when we're talking about, we say language, accent, we kind of mix it a little bit up. And when we say Provençal, we're actually talking about a part of the Occitan or the Languedoc language, the Oc languages.
Yes. Mm-hmm. They have common roots. That's right. Yes, but I told you there is an official Provençal language and the Frédéric Mistral language. So Frédéric Mistral is so Nina knows that very well as well. He wrote in Provençal language at a period it was disappearing, and he created a movement to support the Provençal culture. And actually, he received Nobel Prize of Literature in 1903. And there was really an incredible movement behind him, and people went back to their dialect to write poetry, novels, and that was very, very important. And but it was not a written language; it was dialect, so he had to develop a grammar. But some other people had done that yet. So there are purists, and they are always fighting to know which one is the most authentic Provençal. That's just linguistic little fights.
Always fights, yeah. So you're mentioning Frédéric Mistral. He's an enormous, important figure for what we say Provençal language, right? Because we're in the 19th century, and what we were just talking about the Second Republic, the 19th century, we have to have French as our common language, and then there are regional movements, right? Like little mini revolutions, where a man like Frédéric Mistral and a group of people around him had a movement, right? And they wanted to bring back the history of the people of Provence with their language, with their traditions, etc. Right? So when you work as a guide here, we have to know Frédéric Mistral's work by heart.
Yes, that's quite weird because what Mistral did is take a snapshot of the life in Provence at the end of the 19th century, and that thing should not change. So that was a counter-revolution, I would say, because they just want things to remain the same. So that's positive because one of the consequences is that they fixed the very specific rules for the traditional suits of the Arlesian ladies. So Arlesian are people living in Arles, and there are very specific rules. So if you allow me, and if it works, I will show you a picture of a Queen of Arles at first, and then I will show you very old pictures. So I'm sorry, I can't do that better than that. So you see, it's 7 meters of wild silk that are wrapped. It's not sewed. It's very elegant, and whatever is your size and what happens to you in your life, it will fit. That's really, even the lady who are little, I would say, developed. When we see them in the street, the day when they are wearing this specific costume, they are all very elegant. And it was not to be snobbish. Yeah, all the girls from Arles had this kind of outfit. So now let me introduce you to my grandmother. So I don't know if you can see that very well. Yes, better that way. So she was 18. She was ready to go to the Arles festivities, and she had 4 sisters, and all of them had their own costume. And my great-grandparents were absolutely not rich. So it was really, it was part of the trousseau. And the last detail is that my grandmother wore that way for her engagement day. So that's the picture of her engagement day. For the wedding day, she had a very specific dress, wedding dress. But for engagement day, she was wearing the traditional costume. And nowadays, in the local, in Arles, in the surroundings, so it's specific to Arles, this costume. It's not to all Provence, okay? It's really specific to Arles. But when there is a specific event in Arles for a wedding or even funeral, sometimes many ladies wear that way.
And I have a question about that. Those are gorgeous pictures. Your grandmother was stunning, by the way. But to see the traditional costume, those are gorgeous as well. I'm curious, did Arles have a like a merchant trader relationship then with Lyon, where they were producing a lot of the silk textiles? Is that part of why they were wearing those?
In Provence, growing silkworms was a traditional activity. So the women would keep the worms in their pockets on their big, so all the dresses they had, to let them incubate in the pockets. So that's quite, and then everything was sold to a very large market and then was sent to Lyon to make the silk, that's right.
And we can still, in the farms, right, when we visit farms in Provence or south of France, let's say south of France, that we have these particular rooms that were only for the silkworms, right, to produce the silk thread, the magnan, or the magnanerie. Voilà, it's a special word, a special word for that, which people don't do anymore, right? We don't have that, but in museum farms, wherever we have always this explanation about how silk production was very important actually in the south of France, but the actual fabrics came from Lyon.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
So there is a link between, you're right, Trish, and of course Lyon seems, 200 kilometers away, over 200 kilometers away. It is, of course, the very important silk industry for France, right?
But remember that all the traffic between Arles and Lyon was made by the Rhone River.
Yeah, I was going to say the Rhone River is the link, isn't it? The Rhone River. We kind of, sometimes Ed and I, we fill in for one another. We know what the other one is going to say. No, so yes, the Rhone River is so important, isn't it? It's the link from, past Lyon and Geneva Lake, right? The Rhone River has its beginning there and passes Lyon and passes, but we have always had this commerce and trade, and because of the facility, right, of transporting, for instance, silk on the river, but it goes back long before that, right, with the Greek and the Romans, our cultural heritage.
That's right.
But let me just ask you a question about, you were talking about your grandmother's Arles costume. That is that way of dressing, you know, how the robe is folded and the shawl around the shoulders, how the hair, the bun, right, the hair is put up. All these rules, they were put down when exactly? I mean, was it Frédéric Mistral who actually put down rules about this costume?
So the costume did improve gradually. So the ladies from Arles were apparently very coquette. They were fashion victims. And since the train arrived from Paris and could bring them fashion magazines, they were finding, yes, they found that interesting, but they wanted to have their own way of dressing. So this is how they create that. And by the area of Frédéric Mistral, they wanted to fix once forever the rules so it wouldn't change. And so, yes, that's that's quite complicated because it takes about 2 hours to get dressed, 2 hours just for the hair dressing. It's just a long time to get prepared. But nowadays, it's kind of ceremonial, okay? And so, of course, not all these dresses are made of all silk because silk is very difficult to keep. But they keep on this tradition, and actually all the laces, everything is transmitted in the families. And when a young girl is going to, so because there is kind of initiation, blah, 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 but it would take 2 hours to talk about that. Anyway, all the family is going to a rice funds to offer the entire costume, which is about 4,000 euros for the minimum, and that can raise to 7,000 euros. Because even, yes, 7 meters of wild silk. So that's, yes, that's very expensive. All the laces are made by hand. So I can show you again maybe. What she's wearing on the shoulders here, it's tulle. You know, the tulle for the wedding things. It's tulle,
the veil.
embroidered. That means if you miss one, you have to start again. Everything means finished. So it's a very long word. It's very patient. And if there are some ladies in the family who keep on brooding, okay, so they will participate that way, or they offer money for the birthdays, etc. But everybody is participating, yes.
So you're saying that the costume is not, I mean, women wouldn't use 2 hours in the morning to dress up like that to go to the office, right? That's for sure.
For sure not.
No.
So Women's Day was on Monday, so I would not say they did not work, okay, because they have so much to do at home. But yes, obviously that was a ceremonial costume. It is not every day. The old ladies, we can find that in the portrait that Vincent van Gogh made of the Arlesian ladies. They were wearing that way, but everything was black. Generally, they were widows. And so they just had that everything in black and were wearing regularly, but not all these little details and accessories, of course. But the shape was exactly the same, definitely.
And there is a particular day, for instance, in Arles, right? We have a particular festivity in Arles.
There are festivities around this costume, yes. So
the costume.
The costume day, first of all, the costume day. It's the first Sunday of July. So it was created by Frédéric Mistral in 1904. So they were that way. They make a little défilé and finish the show into the Roman Theatre of Arles. The first year, there were only 20 ladies who wore that way. The following year, there were 50. Nowadays, there are more than 500 ladies walking around the city in all that silk of every color. So that's just gorgeous. So some men were in the 19th century style, but you know, they were just wearing a hat and dressed in black. So that's all. Not interesting at all.
It's always much easier to be a man and dress up for that, right? It doesn't take 2 hours for them to dress up.
No.
And I'm wondering, does somebody in your family still own your grandmother's dress?
Oh, no.
Did that get passed down? No?
No, because, well, the reason is very sad. Al suffered a bombing in 1944 by the Allies, by the way, by the Canadians, by the way. And no, seriously, they were trying to stop the German army who was trying to escape. And my great-grandma's house was literally destroyed by the bombing. So this is why I'm very lucky to have these pictures, because we are very few left, and everything that had disappeared in the bombing.
So when you don't have a costume like that. You don't have an Arl costume.
No, because it's, as I say, there is an initiation. So when they are very small, very young girls until the age of 7, they have a specific costume. Then they become Mireille, they have another costume. And by the age of 16, so that's important because that was settled by Frédéric Mistral at that time. And it was not called the costume day. It was called the Virgin Day. That is to say, yes, all the virgins, so everybody was supposed to know you were a virgin that day, and they were ready to get married. That's exactly the case. And that was to show, well, probably made their own publicity, I guess. But no, I don't have that because I grew in Marseille. And, we were in modernity. So I was born quite a while ago. And sorry. We were not in that kind of thing at that time. I wore a Provençal costume, that's right. But I have to check in my mother's pictures to find that when I was between 12 and 14. But I didn't find that funny because it was not that beautiful at the Arlesian costume. It was quite raw. It was farmer's costume. Even if it was for big days, it was anyway quite raw. It's nothing to do with the Arlesian costume.
So what do you think now that, I mean, obviously you work as a guide, but you're also somebody who is from Provence, born in Provence. What do you think about these festivities? Is it just nostalgia? Is it, let's go back to our roots? Is it important? Should we keep these traditions, or is it for the tourists?
Oh, no, that's not for the tourists. Absolutely. No, that's not for tourists. That's really for the locals. They do that for their own pleasure. I've met an old lady quite, 3 or 4 years ago in the streets of Bar in the middle of the week. She was wearing a beautiful costume. So I worked with a group of tourists, and I asked her, what is the event for, what is happening today? I said, oh no, just for my own pleasure. I wear that way once a week, just for my own pleasure. And they know they are beautiful on these days because when we have groups of tourists, they always accept that people take pictures. They never refuse. They are really, really kind, and they are so happy to be beautiful, actually.
They are.
That's very pleasant, yes.
Yeah, but both Anne and I, sometimes I'll stop these women. I go, s'il vous plaît, désolé, I'm sorry, could I ask you, could you just hold it there and we can take a photo? And I actually also take those moments to explain to visitors about the details, little accessories, the details. You see this and this goes there. And these ladies are just, she's the star, isn't she?
That's right.
And it is a nice feeling when you see, when you hear people talk about, these traditions, they want to do it, they want to be part of that, right? But we also have people, obviously, visitors drawn to, attracted to Provence, or particularly Arles, maybe when we have these festivities, right? And it's a way of promoting the city also, isn't it?
Of course, it's a way of promoting, but people who don't know, they really need some explanation generally. So we were talking about the festivities. So there is this costume day, but every 3 years there is another event. there is the Queen of Arles. So she has to talk fluent Provençal, to know not everything, but most of a Provençal culture. She has to be able to dress alone. She has to be able to talk about this costume, and she's representing the city. She's more than a miss. They are not extraordinarily beautiful. That's not the point. They have to be elegant wearing the costume. That's the minimum that is requested.
Yeah. So it's not a beauty pageant. I mean, it's not Miss Arles, you know, or something. It's really something much more deeper and linked to the traditions, right? And it's every fourth year, right?
So I have to. I'm not in all these things of traditions, but really every 1st of May, there is another festivity when we meet many Arlesian ladies wearing the costume. That's just so bright, so beautiful. I found that great. So anyway, I could not wear that, Trish, because I have short hair, and you have to have very long hair to be able to make all that stuff they have with a ribbon and etc. So this is why many ladies in the surroundings, because not only Arles, but little cities very close to Arles, that are organizing contests of this costume, and they have all very dark and very long hair, and that's gorgeous.
All of your descriptions of this are I'm in Provence occasionally, you know, maybe a handful of times a year because of work and guiding for Rick Steves. But it does really intrigue me. I want to be there during some of these celebrations to be able to witness that. And maybe we can do a search later on YouTube and share a link with you guys about one of the parades that are happening with the costumes of Arles when they go to the arena. So we'll look for that. But that also leads me to think about why non-French tourists come to Provence and the idealistic image that we have of Provence. I mean, even Nina and I, right? We have the lavender fields behind us.
And I told you it is not an area for lavender.
And then even our colleague, Fran, who lives in Spain, of course, as many of you know, he remarked about a trip that he took with his parents. And he says, I remember so dearly the smell of that trip, the olive oil, the spices, the lavender. And I think if you just said the word Provence to somebody, I'm sure those 4 things, you know, 3 or 4 things would immediately pop up into somebody's mind. How much of that is really the true Provence, and how much of that is idealized?
Oh, that's very complicated, because Provence attracts a lot of people, not only visitors for holidays, but as well a lot of people who settle in the surroundings, and they all have a preset idea of what Provence is. And they generally come arrange the way they think that Provence should be. And yes, that's quite strange. And when we do live the way we are used to, they are surprised because it does not correspond. So I have a very stupid and very simple example. So my neighbors, they're from Paris. They bought a very big house, a beautiful, very old house, a mass, arranged very well, etc. And they planted a pine tree. Just someone not from Provence would plant a pine tree. That's a catastrophe. It doesn't make everything. Nobody should plant pine trees. It should be really prohibited. So that's just that's a stupid example, but what will live in the pine tree? Cicadas.
Cicadas, yeah.
They are mostly in the pine tree, and if they are in Provence, they have to listen to that noise as well. That's part of Provence. So obviously, not everyone is playing on the marketplace or having drinks during all the morning. So we do have work, we do have regular lives as everybody, I don't smell garlic. Okay, that's not my perfume, for instance. But of course, we use lavender, and that's part of our smells because it prevents from moths. So we put that in the cupboard, and they are very traditional little things that way that are not exotic. They are really the way we live. But yes, obviously, when I go on holidays, yes, because yes, the tourists, I guess Nina was asked this question as well. The tourists come here and say, but where'd you go on holiday? Because I think that Provence is such the destination. So, well, in places that are exotic to me, so different from Provence, of course. And obviously, it's not because we live in a beautiful place that the other places are not beautiful, of course.
But I think you're right. I mean, Fran's remark about, remembering the like the lavender or the olive oil, whatever the scents, the perfumes, whatever. We're all very sensible to that. It's something that we remember. How did it smell when I was in Bangkok, or whatever? Remember that. So it's also what it is Provence has that image of countryside, right? The beautiful countryside, and the hills of Provence, etc. Right? But Provence today is as much, big cities like Marseille and
Avignon is quite big as well.
And Avignon, where I live, is what, over 90,000 inhabitants. So it's also a modern life, But obviously, all of us, you, I, whoever, when we have a day off, right? What do we enjoy to do? Maybe we take a little hike in the countryside, like we both enjoy to do.
So let me show you what I did this afternoon.
You went out, let me guess, you got, what is that, Trish? Question. Can you a little further, higher up? Can you see the leaves, Trish?
I can't actually. And can you say something so that because we are on speaker view. So if you say something, it can focus on, there we go.
Keep on talking. So yes, that's one of my games. That's called wild asparagus. So an asparagus you will buy at the market is about like my finger. And this is just wild. So I just went into the hill just behind the house and to pick that up. And then I'm going to prepare. Maybe Nina next time will come and have some.
So you just have a bounty of nature so easily accessible to you, which now reminds me when you were saying earlier, when you first moved to Paris, that you were shocked at the fact that people were paying for rosemary, paying for different fruits, paying for all these things because you would just have that. And so is that, I don't know if that's part of like the gleaning custom that France has, where if you had farmlands and then at the end of a harvest, there would be people who could come and glean and gather whatever was left, and it was free to them to just come and do that. Is that a sensibility that happens in Provence? Is it because of what other like farming areas have left over, or just because it's in the wild and it's just there?
Oh no, it's just in the wild. It's there. It's in the hills. It's not cultivated. No, you don't have the right to glean. I mean, the farmers, they make their money, so you are not allowed to come and pick everything. So a lot of people think that they can go in the, for instance, the apricot orchards and pick up what they want. But no, of course not. That's not yours. So that's wild. But I have to admit that the place where I went is part of my family property. So.
No, but what I think is interesting, what you're saying there is like you went out to find wild asparagus, right? It could be not in your family's property, but just out in the hillside next to.
Oh yes, but the property is very small, so then I keep on into the hills, yes, and wherever my steps take me, I go. And well, I just stopped because I was a little cold. So there were many today. There were really a lot on a very, very small area. I was astonished. That's the full season, actually. So that's one of my grandmother heritage. looking for these wild asparagus.
And what specifically are you going to cook tonight using that?
So you can't use it as the normal asparagus. You see, it's very thin, and the taste is really, really strong. So many people don't like that because it's too strong, actually. And the main recipe for most of people is to I don't have the cooking language in English. I'm sorry. You have to fry them very slightly in some butter, and then to make an omelette. So that's the most famous use for the asparagus. But I have some secret recipes, but that's my grandma, and I'm not allowed to talk that on the internet.
Okay, but wait, hang on just a second, Anne, because we have people who are very much intrigued by this, and I want them to have this connection to Provence through their stomach, if we can. And so I'm wondering, after we end this show, when you have a little bit of free moment, would you be willing to share, maybe not the most secret recipes of your family, but a couple of typical or your favorite Provençal recipes that we can share with our Guide Collective Book Club members and anybody else who's watching?
Yes, sure. But,
wonderful. Yes. You heard it, everybody. You guys heard it here. Anna's going to give you some secret recipes.
But the recipes, the oldest recipe book was written by a very far cousin of my mother. So it's called La Cuisine Provençale. And the cover is yellow. I don't know if you've seen that before. And it is part of my family, the editor, actually, but very far away. So yes, but you know, it's a small country, so we are all cousins.
Don't say that.
Don't say that. You come from very far away, Nina.
I know. No, but I'm just can I just add the question? What would be for you, Anne? What would be the really typical dish, right, from Provence? What is the most important?
So the typical you will find in all Provence, certainly ratatouille.
Ratatouille,
yeah. Definitely, because they are really it's the summer dish with all the summer vegetables. It's very simple to cook. There are not many ways to make the differences. Yes, add some little things maybe, but yes, that's the one you will find everywhere. Then from some places to others, there are other recipes. So in Marseille, in Martigues, no, not in Aix, but each place will have their own specialties, yes.
Hmm. So we all know about ratatouille because there was a famous little, movie.
I find that very strange they call the ratatouille, because it's nothing, it's vegetable, it's not meat.
Anyway, so ratatouille, so the ingredients, you're talking about vegetables, right? Can we just reveal the ingredients? Probably yes, people know it already.
Onion, garlic, eggplants, zucchinis, puree of tomatoes, herbe de Provence, of course. I forget one, poivron, pepper, red pepper. And that's it. Then the very traditional way to cook it is to cook each vegetable separately and then to mix them. It's too long to me.
So, it's complicated.
No, but there's you have to make the dish. It takes too long, but yes, that's the way each vegetable will keep its own taste and not mixed with the other one. So that's very specific.
Yeah. So next time we'll make ratatouille. All right, Anne? We'll make ratatouille together.
Yeah, I will prepare you the asparagus.
You could do that. I would love to come by,
Well, then I'm going to insist that we do a bonus episode for Guide Collective Book Club where you guys can make some of those dishes, because we do need to wrap up. It's been about an hour, and I want to be respectful of everybody who's watching, and I'm so grateful for the time that you both shared with all of us, your insights, especially, and about growing up in Provence and the culture and your own personal heritage and traditions. And Nina for organizing this and putting this all together. For those, again, those of you who are watching, if you're not already a member of Guide Collective Book Club, you can very easily join us. All you have to do is send me an email at theguidecollective@gmail.com. Just put in a request and I will add you to the email list. At the end of the month, this month in particular, it's going to be Sunday the 28th, I will send out the email for the Zoom link. That Zoom link is accessible only for Guide Collective Book Club members, in which you will do the final group discussion with Nina about what you have read with The Water of the Hill by Marcel Pagnol. And then otherwise, if you can't tune into that, if for whatever reason, if you aren't a member yet, if you cannot attend live or virtually live with the Zoom itself, we will then post it at a later date on our Facebook page as well as on our website. So don't feel like you've missed out, but we do love having when you are there with us, engaging, participating, sharing your questions. Members, you should have gotten an email yesterday with the link to our new document so that you can submit questions ahead of time. And that's going to give Nina a really good chance to organize all of the things for the group discussion. So just a reminder to that. And if you want more information about the book club, you can look at our website, guide-collective.com, and just go to the GCBC page and all of the information will be on there. We will be announcing our April book pretty soon. Spoiler alert, it was written by one of our Guide Collective members. So that'll be interesting. But for the rest of this month, we'll continue with some more bonus editions regarding Provence, hopefully a cooking one. Anne is going to share some of her recipes with us. And then again, the big group discussion. Thank you once again to Nina and to Anne for sharing their expertise, insights, and personal stories about this. Thank you, all of you, for watching and tuning in.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Anne. Merci,
Trish.
Merci, au revoir. À la prochaine.
Au revoir. À la prochaine. Au revoir.